I heard 3 claps, so that's good.
Yep.
I don't know if that's good.
Now we just need to ramble and for like, I don't know, 2 minutes.
2 hours.
And then I need to wake my brain up enough to start a podcast, and then you guys get to carry this one.
Ramble and for 2 minutes. You mean that's not what we do all the time here?
Yeah, which is why I suggested we start the recording so that like we're like just recording the bull that we're rambling about.
Yeah. It's a roundabout of untrustworthiness. That's what it really is.
It's the Halcyon Frequency Podcast. This is episode 19, airing May 22nd, 2022. I'm blind and I'm hosting this episode, and I'm half awake because I slept for 4.5 hours last night. And I'm joined by Belannaer, who I just interrupted. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Don't worry, I'm also half awake like normal, so it's that kind of cast.
Well, it is what it is. Arch is also here. How are you today, sir?
I'm fully awake here. I'm having a good one.
Well, good evening or good morning. I don't
What
I
is
don't know
the
how time
actually
zones
for you,
work.
Arch, at this hour?
2:30 a.m.
So it's pretty
So-
late.
Probably a bad thing that I'm as awake as I currently am.
It's 7:40 a.m. over here in Canada.
Yeah.
So
Almost 6 p.m.
then-
here.
I was gonna say you've got like the normal time of day now.
Yeah, I mean that's to be like I'll be getting ready to stream soon and everything. So
It's like normal people hours over there in Finland.
yeah.
But we're
Which
here
is-
and we're going to be talking about games that we've been playing this week, and we're going to be talking about news. Nothing super fancy this week, just your normal weekly dosage of Halcyon podcast goodness. But I'm just like floundering here because I streamed for, it was like 14 and a half hours last night, and then didn't get to sleep until like 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's like I'm just tired.
Did you finish the Citizen Sleeper then yesterday finally?
Yes, I did finish it. I've seen credits in that video game, and well, I'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I just saw your post. Like it took you twice as long as the How Long to Beat usually says.
Yep. No, How Long to Beat's like, How Long to Beat claims that you can finish it in 7 hours. And that's like the short, like the do the minimum stuff playthrough, and then the long playthrough they said was 10. It took me about 16, and I definitely didn't do a long playthrough.
But is that because you've got to stop and sort of read things and take things a little bit slower to let chat catch up?
It's because I'm like not reading in my head and power reading it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's a game where you could just like click, 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 dice roll, dice roll, dice roll. You could probably finish that game in an hour if you're just like not reading any of the dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Or if you're a really fast reader.
Sure. Yeah.
Like for me,
But, like-
reading out loud on stream is really slow because I mean it's not my first language. Firstly, and then some of the language in games is also really horrible. It's like how do you pronounce this thing?
Yeah. It's certainly not Dwarf Fortress levels of I need a thesaurus. What?
Yeah, but on the other hand, games have been an amazing tool for learning languages in general because there is so much like a weird language. I know so many words like fantasy and sci-fi related that are totally useless in like normal day life.
Yeah,
mean-
I was actually having this discussion yesterday with my partner. She was saying that she doesn't understand a lot of French, yet she can watch a cooking video in French and be like, "Oh yeah, I get the words here." And it's like the second you combine a passion with the other language, it suddenly becomes so much easier to learn.
Yeah,
It's
so
like, yeah, sure, you don't know how to order a coffee, but you know how to tell them, "Thank that guy, because this one's about to proc."
Yeah, or like medieval weapons, and like I can describe them many ways and have all the names for them in English, but like it's weird. But it's I mean that's how I learned my language, English when I was young. Like before I got to school, I understood a lot of English already, and then just aced everything in school because it was so easy.
I think that video games have taught me other languages less, but definitely expanded my knowledge of English. Like, I don't think I ever would have encountered a word like indefatigable if I hadn't played Dwarf Fortress a bunch.
Yeah, it's kind of shame that everything is in English, and there's not that many like especially like spoken in different languages. Like I played the Sami game, and it was really nice hearing like not English, and then just having subtitles. And I think more of that would be really cool to have in other games as well. And of course, like in Control, you have the Finnish janitor, which is the best thing in video gaming. I just want more stuff like that in all the games.
I think like the closest examples I could think of that is like either Stalker or like Metro, when you're just like trying to hide behind cover and you're getting shot at and people are screaming at you in Russian and you're just like, God, I can't read everything while I'm dodging fire.
But it adds to the feeling nicely to have that
Oh, absolutely.
Russian yelled at you.
Are you saying they need to finish more games?
Yes, absolutely.
I understand that pun. That's
I mean, I think it's actually a shame that there isn't like there's a lot of like a Finnish mythology and language and culture and things that could be put into the like all the games that are made in Finland, but it's just not used. Like we have a whole national epic and everything that could be like a source for a bunch of games. You have like all the Norse mythology and everything, like super popular in all of the entertainment, from Marvel to anything. But you could do this exact same from picking just Finnish mythology, basically. But it's just not used by Finns or anyone else.
The Vikings steal all the fun.
Yeah.
They're here to raid your fun.
Yeah, we kind of copy-pasted and changed it, though. So...
I just think that video games is kind of it's very, well, I think it's unfair to say Western centric, but very English centric, and so things that
especially the US.
Yeah, but like not even just the US. It's like, you know, I'll play a game that's like, I don't know, comes from Brazil, and it's like, oh, it's only in English. It's like, what? So it's the biggest
very,
market. It's the problem.
Yeah, it's very
English
English centric, and you could only imagine how it is. Like, oh, this amazing games come out, but you got to learn French to understand it, and everyone will be like, "No, I'm just not going to play it."
Well, I mean, there's games like Dawn of Mexica, which is a traditional roguelike, which is hard as balls. But it's all based in Mexican mythology. So for me, it's like super strange and like alien and abstract and like drug infused and trippy. Like there are mushrooms that give you power-ups that take you to different realms of existence.
See, that sounds fantastic.
It is fantastic. It's hard as hell, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, more of that in the games. That's really cool. I would love to hear like New Zealand stuff and whatever, some Canadian mythology and so on.
Giant moose is gonna eat your beaver. I mean, what?
There's little bits of it that are in Path of Exile. Path of Exile actually contains parts of Maori culture.
Yeah, that is.
And I think that's absolutely awesome.
They actually released
having like a kiwi running around after me in Path of
They actually
Exile.
have drop bears in that as well.
Oh, naturally, perfect.
They actually released just a new skin for Path of Exile as well. For the Marauder, it's called Maroider. And it just gets more buffer and buffer the more strength you have.
You know, and now that you're just talking about Maori stuff, I'm thinking about the band Alien Weaponry and going, man, they should do a playable music video.
Yes.
Because I've played a couple playable music videos for various metal bands over the years, and it's just like, that would be cool.
That's the same in video games, but also in music. Like I really like that kind of stuff when you have the Alien Weaponry and you have the Who and the what's the Indian band? The Bloodywood.
Bloodywood.
Yeah, like I really like when that kind of stuff comes around.
Bloodywood's most recent stuff is incredible too. Like, geez,
yeah, it's really, really good.
They got so good over the pandemic.
It's really weird when you and me kind of found them. They were like just a small band on YouTube with like 2 guys on their Patreon as a supporters, and then suddenly just boom, touring the world and everything.
Yeah, well, they got invited to Wacken, which is wild. They got to play on one of the supporting stages at Wacken.
Yeah, it's probably an insane opportunity for them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like they're just a neat band because like they're one of the only metal bands that I've managed to make my mom listen to.
What is why them specifically?
Because she likes Every other metal band I've ever shown her, my mom just goes, "Oh, that's angry. I don't like that." But for some reason, she doesn't get that vibe from Bloodywood, which I think is kind of funny.
But Bloodywood is like extremely angry.
Yes, they are
in
one of
parts.
the maddest bands I've ever heard, but my mom likes them for some reason. You know, actually, Arch, have you not heard Bloodywood?
I've not heard Bloodywood, no.
Hold on a second. I'm going to go find a thing, and I'm going to give you a timestamp. And if it's not going to pop up on your recording, or just mute the video, I want you to watch the timestamp of this video. Belannaer, cover for me while I get this video.
Sure. But yeah, like Bloodywood is a really good one, and then the Who. Actually, I was playing the Star Wars last week or the week before, and it was interesting that EA had picked up the Who to actually make like the intro song for the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and it's actually really fitting for that part of the game. And then immediately after that, basically, you go to a very like almost like a Mongolia kind of Asia vibe area. So you had a Mongolian throat singing band that was also kind of a YouTube sensation for actually it still is, but it just came from out of nowhere. And then suddenly EA picks them to make a song for a Star Wars game, and then kind of also includes it into the world, and it's actually really cool. Like more of that thing. There was also kind of similar the steam powered giraffe who does this weird like a steampunky space robot music thing, and they were also in the what's it called, the steampunk game.
Which one?
SteamWorld.
The steampunk.
One of the SteamWorld things, I think. Maybe the first one.
SteamWorld Dig 2, SteamWorld something.
Yeah, I think it was
Tactics.
the first one of those where they actually had like the pixel like pixel character versions of the band members as well and everything, and then they made the songs for the game. And so
Interesting.
I would love to see more of that in all the games. Like a lot of the big games use like obviously like big artists like do normal music, but I would love to see more like these indie bands and like small YouTube bands and just random people from around the world doing the music. I would imagine they're also a lot cheaper to use and license to have their music in your game than someone
Iron
massive
Maiden or whatever.
who's topping the list or something.
I mean, on the 31st of this month, I'm going to go see a band that I can't actually say the name of on this podcast because it requires me saying an F word. So Holy F is the name of them. Their music got licensed to be in one of the Watch Dogs trailer by their licensing company, and they weren't aware of it until after the trailer releases, and then like their Twitter account tweeted it out and was just like, "Hey, we didn't know we were in Watch Dogs. Neat."
It would be also interesting to hear, like, does it actually translate into fans, viewers, like listeners and so on, to have that kind of in a game?
I would assume that it's more likely just here's a lump of money. But probably some of column A and some of column B.
Yeah.
I guess.
But I mean, there's nothing wrong with here's a lump of money as well. It's quite nice around then. Especially if you're a smaller band. Like, I mean, I don't know if they're a smaller band or anything because I haven't heard of them. But like for a smaller band, having a big lump of money to be licensed into a game is probably very, very welcome.
I mean, that band that I was mentioning is like, they're not a big band, but they're also like not a small band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's watched a guy headbang on a camel off my bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
Now you need to watch the rest of them as well.
There's
surprisingly good.
There's a clip at the end of that video, Arch, where he's just like mimicking like playing his guitar for like a scene earlier in the video, and it's like an outtake, right? And he's just like walking this alleyway, and you hear like he's like listening to the music like kind of quietly, and he's just like strumming along on his unplugged guitar, and then a dog jumps out of nowhere and barks at him, and he falls over.
And everyone else laughs.
Then they all laugh at it.
It's so good. That's one of the first videos I think they did.
Yeah, no, that was their first music video. I remember showing them to my friend Kevin, who's like the guy who I go to all the shows with, and he just sent, like, immediately DM'd back. He's like, best part of this video is when they show up at the end and go, "Hey, buddy, thank you very much for watching our video."
No, it looks really fun. Like
they are a very heavily politically charged, loud as hell band, and I really, really like it.
But metal is politically charged, isn't it?
Not always.
Really?
Yeah.
compared to average, they are very heavily, for sure.
It's maybe not as politically charged as punk, but more than Indian pop.
Yeah, more than like I guess Rihanna, but like Bloodywood is like they have like for their not so much for that particular song that I sent you, which was Audi Audi, but like their more current stuff. It like they'll have like here's a trigger warning because we're going to be talking about R and it rhymes with grape. Like they're
oh wow, okay, that's
and like
great.
Abortion rights and that sort of stuff. Like they pick a rabbit hole and they dive in and they write a song about it, and it's fantastic. And it's like bouncy Indian music with like loud guitars and rapping. It's fantastic.
And it's also
I
like
don't know.
the politics that they do is for a really good reason and cause. So it's something that should be talked and be against a lot of the stuff that they talk about in the lyrics.
This is Metal Minute with BlindiRL and Arch and Belannaer.
Yeah, we might need like last week I said we should have a podcast for food and gardening. I think we also need a music podcast as well.
I used to have a music podcast, and then my co-host got a job, and then he got a second job, and now we don't have a podcast anymore.
If anyone else is feeling lost by all this metal talk, you're not alone.
I mean,
I think the
I'm pretty alone.
the last album I listened to is like 21 Pilots. So come on.
Oof.
Don't worry, between Blind and me, we can probably provide even more weirder music. If metal is getting weird, we can find even more weird stuff.
Well, I mean, if you want something a little bit chill, I've been listening to a lot of Blackwater Holy Light, which is a all-girl stoner psych band. That they have multiple songs that I can't read the names of on this stream or on this podcast, but they're fantastic. I bought tickets to go see them soon, so
I've been lately listening to that electronic hurdy-gurdy music that you linked a while ago.
the electric hurdy-gurdy, let's go. That was a very brief like manic weekend where I found a hurdy-gurdy cover YouTube channel and was like, wow, this rocks, and then I just fell into a very deep rabbit hole after that.
It was a really good rabbit hole though. Like some of them were really amazing. Some of the videos also have a really, really cool animation, so like this almost like a kind of steampunky unravels the electronic hurdy-gurdy music. It's really cool.
Oh, another band I've been listening to a lot is the Somali Yacht Club, who I learned are also Ukrainian in the last few months.
Wow.
But yeah, they're just like this super loud, heavy wall of noise, but also ambiently beautiful post-rock like stoner thing.
Okay.
Also, they have maybe the best band name I've like ever heard. Like, how do you forget Somali Yacht Club?
I once fell into a rabbit hole with Black Moth Super Rainbow back when, really early days.
In a long, long time.
Yeah, and I was introduced to them, and I loved them unironically for so long. They were absolutely great.
Now, did that name pop back into your head because I just said Blackwater Holy Light?
Yeah.
Just checking.
It's like some sort of password generator for a name, isn't it?
It's like how you get like awoken as a sleeper agent. Begin Blackwater Holy Light. Ah.
So if you haven't been in the metal hole, Archa, what have you been listening? What kind of music do you like?
Oh, this is where I as you may know, I theme my channel a lot around being chill, and that tends to be what I listen to. I actually don't like a lot of lo-fi because I read a tweet once that it was just 30-something hipster jazz for the current age, and I was like,
it's just chill jazz for children.
Yeah. So
That's
yeah,
why
not a
I
big
closed
fan
the
of that.
loop and listened to chill jazz.
What I have been listening to actually is Triple J in Australia have, every time they've got a guest on, I think it's once a week, they have the guest do a segment called Like a Version, and that's where they have they cover another artist's song, and there's some really good ones out there, like the Wiggles. Do you two know the Wiggles?
Unfortunately. This is
Yeah.
the second time the Wiggles has come up on this podcast.
They did a cover of Tame the Elephant. No. Tame Impala's Elephant. And it's actually really good. and lots of things like that. And a lot of bands will go out of their depth and try on new things. And I just absolutely love it because I'm a huge fan of covers and takes on things because I don't know, it's just fun hearing something in a different way. So yeah, I've been listening to that playlist for quite a lot.
I don't really listen to playlists. I mostly listen to albums.
Well, see, that's where I have two different moods. If I feel like an album, I'll be on Spotify, I'll get the album, I'll listen to that. If I feel like just randomly discovering and having it fed to me, I'll actually go to YouTube because I think YouTube's algorithm is much better than Spotify's.
I don't know if I agree with that, but
Like if you've
I
listened
have
to like a bunch
premium
of
for
songs on
both.
YouTube, and then it's like made the list out of those for yourself, and then you should play that, and it's like 10 songs that I have listened, and then it just goes off the rails somewhere, and sometimes it finds some nice music.
if I want to listen to music, I pick an album I like or a band I like, and then pick an album from that band and listen to it. If I want to discover music, I go to a band I like or a band that or an album that I like, and I'll go to others also listen to either on Bandcamp or Spotify. Or I go to a record store and I buy a record that looks cool, and then I listen to that.
Why am I not surprised that you still go to record stores?
Because I own 300 records, dude. That's why.
Yeah.
300 records and 21 cassette tapes as of...
The only person I know who owns more records than you is my mum. And I think you two would get along very well.
Well, I mean, record stores are cool. Record stores are the only people I've spoken to actual human beings in the last, year.
My mum used to get high and listen to Pink Floyd before it was a cool thing to do.
I mean, I'm generally high when I'm listening to Pink Floyd, but I'm also generally high when I'm listening to anything, so... It's not like
Sitting there
unique to
going,
Pink
is
Floyd.
this allowed on the podcast or?
I fly kites and listen to Pink Floyd. Everything I do is legal for an adult to do in Canada, okay? Cannot speak to Arch's mom. Anyways.
Sorry, Mum, I just ratted you out.
Anyways, now that we're admitting crimes, I think we should talk about video games.
Possibly.
Right after this short break. When we return, we will be discussing Citizen Sleeper and Lost Nova and One More Island and Path of Exile, just as a few highlights, and we'll be back right after this.
Hi there, podcast listeners. Woe Jess here. If you missed me on today's episode, never fear. Stop by on Twitch instead. You can find me at twitch.tv/woe_Jess, Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Please enjoy the rest of this episode, and thank you for listening.
And we are back. Once again, this is the Halcyon Frequency Podcast, episode 19. I don't know if I said that at the top. Oh, well. Airing May 2022. May 22nd, 2022. There's too many twos in that date. And Arch wants to talk about a video game called Lost Nova.
Yeah. So this is a review key I was sent for a game, and I've had a few recently, and I thought, you know what, I'll give this one a try because I loved the look of it. It had a very almost like a pastel-y vaporwave style. It was very, very cool looking. And I have to say, we have finally, it's May, and we've got the first game that's made me cry in in 2022. It was an absolutely beautiful game. It had some really great humor, great visual, mechanics were nice and easy. It was just a really fun game to play, and you know, my community loved watching it too. So yeah, I've not normally taken a risk on new games like that lately. Like I'm trying to break out of my shell. Like I think we recall the last few times I was on the podcast, I was like, oh yeah, I'm playing the same old games I always did because, you know, that's my safety place. And started actually trying new things, and Lost Nova is just one that's felt absolutely rewarding for doing so. You know, it's a great game, nice and easy. It's sort of like a platformer or adventure game where you run around. There's no combat. It's not a combat one. It's more puzzle and resource collection based. And so you tend to just wander around, harvest resources, solve puzzles or challenges by talking to people. And yeah, no, really nice and smooth. And you get to hug the bunnies.
So I think FG spoke about this one last week.
Yeah,
and
she did.
The gist that I kind of get on this is that it's one of those farming kind of crafty buildy games, right? But short and bite-sized?
Yeah, so I wouldn't even really call it crafting or farming, because it literally is, you wander around, collect the resources as you adventure, come back, click a button, and you get the item. Very rarely is it, okay, I want to do this, so I've got to go get this resource. They tend to come as you progress, which makes it feel like just a general progression and growth. At not one point does it start feeling grindy. And it's just, it's light enough on that stuff, bite enough on that stuff to really just enjoy the story. And yeah, it is quite short. I think probably about, I don't know, 6 hours or so to finish for me, and that was
FG did it in
on
4.
stream. Yeah, she probably speaks faster than me, you know. gets lost less often. But yeah, no, it's an absolutely great game, and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it gets 2 arch thumbs up.
Yeah, because I like you enjoy that aesthetic for Lost Nova, and it's just this. It's got this really nice like what I remember Saturday morning cartoons looking like, but not ruined by what Saturday morning cartoons look like now, if that makes sense. So it's been on my watch list, but I was worried it would just end up being too grindy for me because I'm very sensitive to crafting, survival, farmy grind, and I'm not a fan.
Yeah, see, that's what I like about this. It wasn't survival. That's one thing I want to stress. You can't die, you know? You literally roam around, collect stuff, you meet really interesting people. Like, one of the introductory quest is you go to a guy and he's like, oh, can you deliver these apples to this other guy? He's like, I'm busy because I got my music practice on. So you're like, okay. You take the apples and the guy's like, oh, he's not here? Oh, that's a shame. He's my friend. You know, and you're like, he's got music practice on. He said you should drop by if you can. He's like, okay, I'll be there. And then it's this whole quest of they start a band. And as you roam along, it's not like a quest where you go, okay, I've got to go to point A, point B, point C, point D. As you progress through the game, you will find these NPCs in a little spot and they'll be having a conversation, you know? You don't have to do anything to progress to the next part. You just have to come along and they'll be at the next town. You talk to them and they'll literally be just progressing along in their own little story. You're just catching glimpses of it. And I think that's absolutely great. And, you know, it feels a lot more peaceful than a game where you're like, okay, I've got this quest. I've got to go here, do this, do that, do that. I've got to fight this. I've got to collect this. You literally just follow the story and the world follows with you.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Need to try that, I think.
Yeah, FG didn't tell us last week that you can hug bunnies as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's actually an achievement. See, this is the thing. I thought only one of the bunnies could be hugged, but there's actually an achievement for where is it?
Hug every bunny.
Pet every bunny in every town.
Excellent.
But yeah, it's really cute design. very, very, really nice stories. Like, again, I teared up at the end because, like, it's a short game. It's a simple game, yet it does carry a lot of meaning of, you know, because a lot of it is the character is overworked. They're being forced on a holiday. And, you know, then things go wrong and they're trying to get back because they want to get back. They got to get back to this. And everyone just keeps saying, relax. And, you know, it's sort of got that feeling of if you spend too much time working and not resting, things are going to be bad. So, yeah, do go play that game, Blind, for absolutely no reason.
Noted. Noted. Belannaer, do you want to talk to us a little bit about One More Island?
And yeah, sure. So I was sent a key for this as well. And then one of my viewers was like, when are we going to try this game? It's like, today. So yesterday I gave it a go. And it's basically like a colony simulator. If you throw like a little rim world or prison architect in there. Although no combat of any kind. And then you marry it with Anno. So like in Anno, you have like multiple islands all over the place. And you start with one. And you have different fertilities on an island. So like this island can grow these plants, and the other one can grow tea, and then third one can grow spice, and you get diamonds on this island and so on, which is exactly from like Anno. And it's actually a really interesting combination of that. Also, you have the same like a leveling mechanic for your population. So in Anno, you need to provide the basic needs so that they don't starve, which is Anno. In Anno is fish, and it's also in One More Island. You provide fish, they don't die, but they also have these extra needs that you can provide if you want, which gives you research points. And once you basically provide all of those needs and get the research, you can level them up to next tier, and those the fish and the bonus needs become the necessary needs, so they'll die if they don't have all of those 4 needs, and then they get like a new set of a higher tier material that gives the next research points, and then those become your basic needs when you move to the next tier, and so on and so on. So it gets more and more complex, same way as Anno. And it's kind of weird how it works in a colony management game as well. And it's recently came into early access, and it works surprisingly well. I had some issues with the UI being clunky here and there, but like nothing major. But the game itself works just perfectly.
So I'm staring at the Steam page right now, and I want to clarify something. It's not in early access. It is
it's
full
not,
release.
It is full release.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm kind of surprised by a game going full release nowadays.
Especially a game like this.
It does
I'm
feel
looking
like
at this,
it has...
It kind of... Sorry.
Like the whole... it feels like it has that, like the whole game. Like you have the beginning and the tutorial, which could be better. And then you go all the way like colonizing the islands, and then eventually you... have to declare independence because you're basically colonizing like a new world, and then there's a queen who comes to complain and demand taxes and so on, and then eventually you want to have an independence. So it does feel like they have like the whole length of the game, like they have all the parts in there, but I feel it could be expanded.
Well, I mean,
So
these types of games are very modular and expandable. But go on, Arch.
Yeah. The thing about this is I saw this and I got very, very keen. It sounded right up my alley. The graphics looked up my alley. And then I started reading the reviews, and they tended to say it was like Anno, but not in necessarily a good way. Like it was like Anno, but missing things. Is that how you feel about it? Like, if you wanted to play a true one of these, would you suggest Anno, or would you say this is a good introduction for someone who's not necessarily played a lot of those type of games?
I would say it's a good, like a light introduction to that type of game. You don't need to have like that massive production chains and transportation and everything as in Anno, obviously. But also, I feel like Anno is getting, like, especially the newest one, because there is so much content, it gets a little too much already.
I think I would say this. As somebody who's played Anno, I really enjoy like the first half of an Anno game, and then, as Bell says, they get too crazy and obnoxious. Also, Anno has some of the most insufferable RTS combat I've ever experienced in a video game,
Yeah,
just
it's
period.
okay.
Like, nobody ever talks about that, but the RTS combat in Anno is awful. The
Yeah,
city building
it's
side
okay.
is great. The
Yeah, whenever I
RTS
play
part where
Anno,
you have
like
to
the old
fight
ones or the
people's
new
bad.
one, I just disable the combat straight up because there's
Yeah.
already so much
So-
to do, and the combat is just the worst feature of the game. So why not just get rid of that when there's already like.
But the
$100
last thing that I would
How do
also
you-
note is this is $20. Anno is like $180 for the game and all of the DLC. So
Yeah,
what they're
currently
comparing
it's
it
on
to
sale
is
for
not fair.
120 here.
Yeah.
That makes sense, and that is kind of the bit that I was sort of thinking about. Is like, Anno looks great, but it looks like if you really want the full experience, it's expensive.
This definitely feels like more of the first half of Anno experience, the better one. So if you like that one, I would say this would also be nicer for you. But also, it does have this whole like a prison architecture, RimWorld kind of side to it as well. Although you don't really care. Like I've had like 130 colonists currently at this moment, so you don't really care about the individuals that much. They don't really have that much individuality to them as well. It's just basically numbers and tiers of population.
Just looking at this game and reading about it and talking about it makes me want to check back in with Lords and Villians.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of these like colony management games that are coming out and have been coming out that are kind of either trying to be a copy of Dwarf Fortress or trying to be a copy of RimWorld or trying to be some kind of space version. And they all
trying
kind
to
of
take that archetype and do something different with it.
Yeah. So this definitely does something. I was explaining it on my stream yesterday as well that it's not trying to be either of those. It's trying to take that like colony management theme and then throwing a Anno into it and trying some new things with it. And I think it actually works really well for that kind of thing.
Interesting.
Like I'm definitely going to be playing it more myself as well, but I would also already recommend it from like the 5-6 hours I did yesterday. Especially like most of our team likes like RimWorlds and that kind of type of games, or Dwarf Fortress. And I think it definitely fits that kind of a player and audience as well.
Gotcha. Good to know. I'm gonna talk about Haya for a second here because I got a quick one. If assuming we're all done with one more island.
Yep,
Okay.
it's
So
already on my list.
I've got this game called Haya. This is one that I can do real quick because it's real short. You can 100% this game in about, I don't know, an hour, maybe 30 minutes if you are good at it. But I've played it for about 2 hours now. It's $2. It's independent developer Chocolocalypse. Chocolocalypse. It's Chocolate Apocalypse, okay? But it's their first game that they've made that's for sale. It's somebody I've followed on Twitter, and they used to work in AAA studios, and they've done other game things, but this is their first independent release. And essentially, I want to say it's Fruit Ninja, but ultra-violent, but that's also not totally true. It's a top-down arena arcade game. There's a bunch of different characters with different kind of perks. And the whole mechanic of the game is you have a bar that fills up. When that bar is full, although it doesn't necessarily need to be full because some characters don't need it to be full, but by default, when the bar is full, you can hit the left mouse button. You run around with WASD and you hit the left mouse button. Like it's literally just WASD, mouse button. You hit the mouse, and then the game kind of goes black and white, and you draw a line. And enemies are spawning on the map, and you play as various variations of samurai, right? You draw the line, and you draw the line through the enemies, and then you shoot through the enemies, and then you have to wait like 3 seconds before you can attack again. You have to run around, dodge their bullets, and dodge their attacks, and then you hit the button, and then you go into this kind of bullet time mode again, and then you draw a line through the enemies, and then your character just shoots through all the enemies, and they all explode into blood, and you get a combo, and it's very satisfying. And there's different characters with different variations. So one character moves twice as fast. One of them, the bar charges way faster, and they can use it whenever. One of them, they don't have the speed slowdown. One of them, they have a big hammer. So when they finish the attack, they smash the hammer down and do a big AoE. And it's just a little score attack game. It's super simple, and each one of the different characters has a little set of goals that they need to achieve. But it's $2, and it's a bit of fun, and I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really like this new trend of having these very small games for like $2, $3. Like the Haya and like the Vampire Survivors and all these games that have been coming out lately. Like you can try like a small concept of an idea that's just fun for like several hours, and it doesn't really cost you anything.
Yeah, I don't think that this game's going to have as much replayability as something like Vampire Survivors. I mean, like, it does have global online leaderboards and whatnot, which was kind of funny when I was playing it pre-release because it was just, like, me, the developer, and then, like, 3 other people. But, like, it doesn't have as much meat on its bones as something like a Vampire Survivors, but it's definitely a fun couple hours.
Yeah, for, like, a $2 or something, 2 hours or 3 hours of entertainment is already pretty good value.
And it's got this really good, like, kind of hip-hop-y sounding soundtrack in the background while you're just cutting through stuff, and it's very satisfying.
Oh yeah, that's always cool when they do that. Like, there was what was it called? Anyway, some older game as well that was like a couple of euros, and then the soundtrack was like amazing. So it's like, and then you get the soundtrack with the game as well. It's like, I paid for the music. I didn't care about the game that much. Although the game was very fun as well. And it sounds like one similar case where the music is amazing for just $2.
Have either of you seen the anime Samurai Champloo?
Yes.
This is
I've seen it.
pretty close to being a Samurai Champloo game.
Ooh.
Like, one of the dudes that you can play as is like wearing a tuxedo, and he has like sunglasses and a massive pipe and a pompadour and a sword. Like, it's that kind of game. It's great. It's cool.
Yeah, talking about the cheap €2, €3 games, I was playing some Nova Survival this week, which is basically a copy of Vampire Survivors, pretty much down to all the mechanics and everything. But they also have some of their own things thrown in there, and also the graphical style is much better, pixely art, and I actually really enjoyed that, and we'll be definitely playing more of that also. But yeah, it is basically if you played Vampire Survivors, this is exactly the game. You know every single mechanic basically immediately. It's like, oh, this is this game's this version, and this is this game's this version. So it's basically just more of Vampire Survivor, but it has different weapons and like different characters and different style of levels. So it's different enough to be its own thing. If you like that kind of type of game.
I love that these air quotes survival games, like, I mean, you're talking about nomad survival here, but like there's like 4 or 5 I can think of off the top of my head, and then there's this obviously the mandatory big anime titties one that's going to be coming out later this year as well, which looks very colorful.
Yeah, that's a sci-fi version as well.
Yeah, but like the one gripe that I have with this genre, like I don't really like Vampire Survivors. I think that's pretty known on this podcast. The one actual gripe I have with this genre of games is that they're always classified as roguelikes, and people need to just reclassify them as like arcade games or something, because they are not.
I was actually talking about the same thing on my stream. Like, there's starting to be like a genre of these games now.
Like they're literally arcade shmups.
Yeah.
They're arcade shmups. Like, they're score attacks. That's what they are.
Yeah, pretty much.
Stop.
Yeah. With like a meta progression.
Like, I remember because when Vampire Survivors came out, I streamed it, and I had this long discussion with my chat that like this would be the most successful arcade game ever if this was an arcade game.
Oh yeah, I would
At the
definitely
peak of
have played
arcades.
it. Yeah, an arcade.
And like, people should they should just call them arcade score attacks. Like, anyway. That's my one actual gripe with those games.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I think they're a little boring.
So sadly, like, arcade is like a dead term at this point. Like, there's no more arcades. People have forgotten about those things. Would be nice if we could like.
Which is a shame in and of itself.
Yes, we need like a resurface of it.
Score attack. We can call them score attack, right? People know what score attack is, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I didn't know it before you said it, but I picked up on it pretty quickly. So you know.
I mean, a score attack is a game where you're trying to compete to get higher up on a leaderboard. That's a score attack.
Yeah, but after game over, nothing progresses. A roguelike is where there's progression, even in that.
No, you can have progression in a score attack. Well, I mean, there's no progression in like in those survival games. Those survival games, you just unlock new characters and new maps.
Okay.
Oh, there's
You can
also
unlock
upgrades,
new
so-
characters and new maps and new leaderboards.
You do have
and you can
like, an
also
upgrade
unlock
system.
permanent upgrades, but
Yeah.
like it's still just a score attack game. It's not a roguelike. Also, roguelikes, you don't upgrade anything ever. Ah! Anyway. This is a bad subject. Yeah.
This could be a podcast of its own as well. Like
Moving right along.
Nothing people call roguelikes are actually roguelikes. That's the actual problem. Anyway,
so what are the this one?
so let's see. Nova Survival. Hiya. One more island. Arch, talk to me about Sunhaven?
Yeah.
It's under your list. I don't know. What's that?
It's imagine if someone who played Stardew Valley and went, this game needs some more D&D style stuff. Like more heavier RPG elements. It's a, farming, crafting game, but it's got a lot more leaning on combat and exploration than Stardew Valley did. It's been on my radar for a while. It was a Kickstarter game that was released last year. The one thing that always kind of held me back is the way the characters sit over the world. It's very clear that they are. It's almost like imagine a beautifully painted world and then little cutout anime pictures that you place over it for the characters, like playing a board game or something. They do feel slightly off, and that was a visual thing that I sort of struggled with a lot. But the game itself is really solid. It's nice. It feels good. It adds more skill progression and more sort of stuff within that to do it. And I had a lot of people, not a lot actually. I had 2 or 3 come in and say, "Oh, this is a rip-off of Stardew Valley," but I maintain it's absolutely not.
Stardew Valley's a ripoff of Harvest Moon.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's no original thoughts, but it was honestly closer to Graveyard Keeper, I'd say, in terms of that than Stardew Valley. So yeah, but it was a fun little game. I've played it a little bit off stream. I don't think I'd play it on stream again. Because yeah, it's fun, but the character design does throw me a lot. Like even the shading and stuff, it looks like they're a solid block that's in front of what's like in front of the environment. So yeah, but I quite enjoyed it for the time that I did play it, and I keep coming back and I'm like, oh yeah, the characters.
I'm looking at this right now because I've never heard of this until you mentioned it, until I read it on the doc just now. I'm looking at the Steam page, and the 4th screenshot on the Steam page. The heck is that? That's all I have to say. Is that a dragon? Is that a giant cat with wings? Is that
oh my god,
a dragon?
That is Elios. He is the protector of the forest, and he is the sun dragon. He is majestic.
That is pretty
so is
fabulous
that
hair
a
for sure.
dragon dressed up in its fursona? Like, what am I looking at?
It's just it's like a lion themed dragon. I don't think they go into any specifics trying to explain who and what he is, but
do they call it a dragon in this game?
Yes.
Man, and I get mad at Skyrim for claiming to have dragons.
But it has 4 legs and wings and tail, so it's a dragon. It's not a wyvern.
But it's not reptilian.
It's a lion
It's
dragon.
fuzzy.
It's
lying about its
accurate,
species, is what it is.
It's accurate dragon, like dinosaurs.
You go to Elios, the dragon guardian of Sunhaven, and tell him he's not a dragon, and see what he says. Also, I love Elios, as in they just dropped the H from Helios.
So, how much content does this have? Like, how much have you played it so far?
So I've played about 6 hours.
Yeah.
And I believe I have scratched the surface a little bit.
Because
it is very in depth.
Yeah, it's been 11 months in early access so far.
So just to put it in comparison, there's 5 different skill trees based on exploration, farming, combat, mining, and fishing. Each skill tree has 10 levels. Each level has 5 skills, and each skill has like upwards of 3 points to put into them. So there is a huge amount of customization, a huge amount of stuff like that. And it can be played multiplayer, which I think would really up the experience a lot more. But it is quite a lot of fun in terms of the individual play. For me, a lot of the drawback was, it looked a little bit like an RPG Maker like style characters. And like the background art and all of that is good. If they'd just spent a bit more time working on the actual characters for me, it would have felt a lot better.
Yeah, I very much agree. Looking at these screenshots, that the backgrounds look like amazing, a lot of them, and then some of the characters
and the
just
environment
really clash with the.
I'm still bothered by this fuzzy dragon, though.
Look, the biggest issue I had starting out with it was the actions are slow, and you're like, is this clunky? Like I was sitting there going, I don't know if I can play a full stream with it being so clunky, like because you would go ho, move across, ho. Turns out, it's just representing low skill. As your skill gets better, you go ho 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 ho, like you're Santa Claus. Yeah.
I hope it goes like proper like anime farming at the end. It's just standing in the middle of this, whoa, and everything's just growing.
Scroll down the screen to the about this game, and you watch a guy cast basically a hoe the field spell, and then another person cast rain clouds to water it. Like it gets full anime. It's like Goku goes farming,
Also 15 romanceable characters. Humans, elves, demons, and multiple animal races.
Yeah. You could be a naga, so like a snake person. You could be a beast person. I was an angel, which nobody seemed to care about. Like I was walking around with wings and a halo, and everyone's like, "Yeah, hi, you must be the new guy here."
I mean, it's your average anime world, and it's like nobody pays attention. It's like, oh,
I mean, in a world where there's fuzzy dragons, nothing is sacred.
They also, if you look at the 7th picture on the Steam, they seem to have a purple Totoro as well.
Yeah, you've got to feed them certain things in order to get past them. That's absolutely great. It's like the whole thing is fun. Do not get me wrong at all. The only issue I had was the character art. But even then, if you're able to look past that, you will have an absolute ball in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
I mean, they have like a couple of
Sui hasn't streamed this yet. It seems like a Sui game.
Yeah, I'm thinking of playing this as well. I might have to convince some people to play on a multiplayer as well.
I actually had FG message me saying, "Hey, you should check this game out." She thought it was an Arch style game. One person has played it, and it took them 38 hours to finish the main story.
That sounds pretty good value as well.
Yeah. Oh, it's really good. But so it looks like a lot of it came from a Kickstarter. Like you can see, there's 2,000 very positive ratings. It's sitting in a really good spot.
Mm-hmm.
Fully recommend.
And I guess there's also a bunch of content still to come
graphics.
since they're only at patch 0.5.
There was just an update for it the other day.
Yeah.
On the topic of lots of content, Belannaer, how's Path of Exile?
It is. It's not great, to be honest. So they launched a new league last Friday.
Before you say anything, if you said it's not great, my only question is, you must be in the first half of the league.
It is. Yes, it is.
The PoE cycle is release a new league, everyone complains, halfway through, release an apology, fix it. By the time the end of the league, it's actually a really good and fun mechanic.
The league itself is actually, it's called Sentinel this time, and it's actually really good and interesting mechanic. It's very low key, so you can just do it whenever you feel like, and doesn't really stop your whatever you're normally doing.
Oh, great.
But that is actually not the issue. Like the league mechanic this time, surprisingly, is actually good. And it's like almost like you press a button and it prints currency for you. And it's so good. But the problem is the previous league. So before this league, they had a league called Arch Nemesis, where you were basically able to choose like these things that made your arch nemesis that you fought, and you had like 4 items you put into it, and that decided what kind of abilities it had. there was like a base type of monster, and then you added your own modifiers onto it, like action RPGs do when they randomize monsters. This one has fire infused, and this is cold infused, and so on. So they introduced this new set of modifiers with the arch nemesis, and they were supposed to be like these really challenging modifiers that you build up into your arch nemesis. If you want to, you could also just skip the mechanic and not do it at all if you felt it was too risky. And there was also a really big reward tied to each of these. The harder you made it, the more reward you got, which was kind of neat for one league and everything. So as always, they kind of try to make a league and then put the league mechanic into the base game in the coming like the future leagues. So this time around, they decided we'll take these really challenging, mega powerful modifiers from the arch nemesis, and we'll just replace the old modifiers on the rare and magic monsters without increasing any of the rewards or anything. So you suddenly have like every single one of these like rare monsters is suddenly a boss fight with no rewards, starting from level 1, and it's a nightmare. They're just not balanced for that kind of thing. And also, since you have like all of these old league mechanics, like you have Heist and you have a Delve and you have all the other ones, and Blight especially as well. And these new modifiers spawn on the monsters like Blight and Delve and the Heist, like really spam rare and magic monsters at you. So you'll have like a million of these super powerful monsters in a content that's balanced originally to the previous modifiers and challenge, and it just literally breaks the game. Like it's that bad.
Really?
And it's funny because they said that we have done extensive testing. I was playing this on stream and I was memeing the whole extensive testing because it's not extensively or tested in any way. Like they literally just threw them in the game without thinking and checked. Okay, this works.
Yeah.
Let's go.
To be fair. What is Path of Exile users hit? Like Path of Exile in the new leagues, they hit just having a quick look here, 19,000 average players, so peaking up towards 100,000. There's absolutely no way to test across 100,000 people, but you would think that the balance of it all would have been identified sooner. So hopefully they fix that, because
they have made it a lot better already.
Yeah, in my experience, the one redeeming factor is they are willing to step in and change things mid-patch.
Yeah.
Like mid-league, and be like, okay, this is wrong. We're doing these changes.
Yeah, they literally patched some of the stuff the launch day. Like this is not good. There was also some bugs related to them, like attack animations missing from a monster or a boss, which is a small issue.
Slight?
Yeah, and then they like first quick patch they reduced a lot of the numerical values, and then they deleted some of the mods and they changed some of the mods, and like it was not extensively tested for sure. Like this would be something if you played one character from like the campaign to end of the campaign, a couple of the maps that's basically after campaign portion of the game. If you did that, you would have noticed all of these issues. Like literally, you cannot play through that without noticing all of these problems. And then the new mechanic, the Sentinel, actually also buffs monsters, because it's like this small robot that flies next to you and buffs monsters for you. And depending on what kind of Sentinel you have, you get different bonuses on and how difficult the monsters turn. So you have already these mega powerful mods from the previous league, and we are supposed to buff them even more now. And it just clashes really badly. But other than that, the league is actually one of the best leagues. Like it's really fun to play if you are not suffering from the monsters.
Well, with all that said, hopefully they're able to kind of clean it up and make it another one of the good leagues, as Arch was referring to.
Yeah. Sadly, it's kind of hard to recover from the launch. Like a lot of the players are like, nope, I'm out, and we'll wait for the next league. So, especially if you're playing on the trade league, that means thousands of players are less to trade with, and a lot less of the rare items and everything on the market, which makes it a lot harder to get them in decent time.
More game to play.
Yeah, it is. But it's also, you don't like the grind, so it's more of the grind, the boring kind of grind, and not the fun kind of grind.
Speaking of the fun kind of grind, Arch, what game do you want to talk about next? You got 2 here.
Oh, the fun kind of grind. I would absolutely have to say in that sense. Now I think V Rising. I've been playing V Rising all day today. I bought it this morning. It's so fun. It's like, it's a good segue for Path of Exile because it is sort of like the top-down Path of Exile sort of view, but with like Valheim mechanics. You can just run through, you can cut trees down, mine, like break stone and this, but it's set in this dark and gloomy vampire-ridden world. And it's just such a really fun and entertaining exploration game at this point, I've not gotten too far into it. The one thing that sort of held me back is the same thing that held me back in Valheim is, you go out, you harvest raw resources, they need processing. And to process, it's like 20 stone to make a brick, but it also takes a minute or, 20 seconds or whatever. But that means you go out and get a stack of 500 bricks. 500 stone. You put it in. That's like, a couple of minutes that you're waiting for. And then you have like 30 stone that you then use up in 10 seconds. And that is the one challenge that I'm having with the game. But, again, balancing that. And if anything like Valheim, the modding community tends to step in and speeds things up too. But it is a really fun game in the sense of, it's not like, okay, you go here to fight the boss, you go there to fight the boss, you progress to this next thing. I literally cleared an area and there was a little forest next to it. And I thought, okay, I'll put my base here. Put my base, started building. And I'm like, okay, I need some lumber. I'll go cut that tree. That tree turned out to be an ent that promptly got up, killed me, and then proceeded to stalk my base for a while. And I had to run away and sort of wait for it to resettle. And it was a lot of fun. I enjoy those resource collection games and the ones that you kind of sit there and go, right, I want to put in these new walls. So for the next while, I'm working on stone. And the really cool the cool mechanics of this game are that different creatures have different blood types and they give you different bonuses. So if you drink blood from a creature, like a creature type creature, so like a wild animal, like a wolf or deer, you get bonuses to like movement speed and such. Whereas, if you hunt humans and you get like the rogue, that gives you more critical. They're the archers and the poachers. If you go after the soldiers, you can get warriors and brutes, and one is raw strength and such. And then you can go after the workers who give you bonuses for like resource collection and stuff. So there is a wide variety of that, and like the various benefits of the different types of blood mean that, you actively find yourself as like, okay, I've got to go find another worker because my blood's low and I want to keep this benefit. So you find yourself stalking through the camps looking for the right kind of person. I've kind of really enjoyed it. I don't think I'd play it on stream. It's not it's not a very chill game. But it's an absolutely fun game to play with the community because we have a public server or a private server for Halcyon subscription members.
So
little segue.
Do you want me to like take a big dump on your excitement for this game?
I'll fight you, but sure.
Because that's my opinion. So first off, this game's not for me, right? Was mildly interested in the concept and then realized that it was top-down Valheim and noped the heck out completely. But the actual thing that bothers me about this game is it is incredible to me how quickly the internet forgets. And what I mean by that is this V Rising, this video game, is made by Stunlock Studios, right? Stunlock Studios is, or previously was, a PvP arena game developer. They made PvP games. Their first game was Bloodline Champions, which released in, I think, 2009 off Steam originally, which is when I played it. Or I played like some early version of it, which was a top-down PvP combat game, kind of akin to like a World of Warcraft arena, but much more accuracy and timing focused and a lot harder. Very esports focused. They ran weekly tournaments. They ran monthly tournaments with cash prizes. Players could pay into a pool to enter these tournaments, and then you could win stuff. Like it was a neat game. But the development team did a really, really, really poor job moderating the game and putting any sorts of moderation tools into the game at all, to the point where it was one of, like, people say that League of Legends is toxic. Oh boy, you poor children, you don't know anything. And this game has global chat. So it's like, the game kind of got to a point where it wasn't quite keeping them up and running. So what they did was they removed all of their moderation tools and gave the players control over making tournaments, and then said, we're not updating it anymore. So a game that I really, really enjoyed playing, which was difficult to enjoy due to a horribly toxic, nightmarish community, became unplayable due to just the absolute insanity that game became afterwards, and now it barely runs on modern computers. Then, a couple of years later, they put a game called Battlerite into early access for $30. And they promised it was going to be Bloodline Champions, but they were going to have proper moderation tools and similar ideas and concepts. Much more colorful art style, much more like kind of League of Legends-y or Smitey, kind of more palatable to a mainstream audience. More or less promised to be what Bloodline Champions was intended to be. Then the most popular genre in the world suddenly became Battle Royale games. They halted/stopped development of Battlerite, dumped the game, stopped updating it, made the game free to play, and then took the exact same game and made a pay-to-play spin-off, which is now free to play, called Battlerite Royale, and made it into a Battle Royale game, which upon release had overwhelmingly negative reviews. At this point, it's recovered to very positive because Steam deemed that as a review bomb, even though it was actually just the community going, hey, we like the other game, update the other game. And then after that stopped making money and everybody stopped playing it, they're now making V Rising.
So I'd just like to get a little wipe and clear away that turd. V Rising, yeah, no, I absolutely get that.
Like, I have so much bad blood for this studio. The second I realized it was that studio, I was like, I can't support this. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
like,
that's
people
fair. That's fair.
Need to hold studios accountable for abusing the hell out of their community, and it upsets me how quickly people forget.
The moderation tools is one thing, and I do completely understand that. Failing to moderate a game and failing to make sure it doesn't fall into that toxic cesspit is on the developers and such. Now, the development changes with the games, the decision changes around the games. I mean, on one hand, yeah, but on the other hand, sometimes things don't work out the way you hope they do. And I hope that that's the case. I hope they approached with the best intentions and realized at some point we can't actually deliver on this, and then had to pivot, whether it's budget, whether it's scope or anything like that. The thing about this versus Vampire Rising or V Rising is those games are community-based games, whereas V Rising is you're able to play by yourself, offline with your friends. And to me, that alone,
to me, it doesn't matter what V Rising is, because I still feel like I haven't gotten an apology for the, couple hundred hours I put into Bloodline Champions. Like I
Yeah,
still,
no.
there's still bad blood there that is like still hanging, and it's like,
Maybe you need to become a vampire, go drain some new blood.
no, I don't want to play a crafting survival game, thanks. So it's like,
I am very much looking forward to playing this, to be honest.
I'm sure that Vampires Rising or V Rising is fantastic, and it's the hype game right now, and everybody seems to love it. But when they abandon it and don't finish it and pump it full of expensive microtransactions, and the PvP scene for that game becomes a nightmare, which is, from what I can tell, the designed endgame of that.
Well, there is like 60 bosses or something as well.
History
so
repeats.
there is a PvE element that
As
you
a
can
P-
play
Oh,
also.
I know that
As
there's
a
a PvE
PvE
element,
experience.
but
As a
every single person
PvE
I've talked to is like,
experience.
you grind up, you build your base, and then you go play PvP. And I'm like, oh no.
No, it's like Ark. So Ark is a PvP game where you grind up and you build
Yes,
your
but Ark
base
is a
and you go
bad
PvP.
game by a studio that
Ark
doesn't
is
know how to
great.
make mechanics that lend themselves to PvP. This is a studio that knows how to make finely tuned, intricate PvP mechanics. And watching gameplay of V Rising, it has all of that trapping. It like that game looks like Bloodline Champions in the way it plays. Like it's a Stunlock Studios game through and through. Like, yes, it definitely has a large PvE element. But to me, this is a studio that has had problems with its community for the entirety of its existence, pivoting to a different format of game rather than addressing their inability to moderate. And that scares me away by default. Regardless of the type of game that it is.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Because they didn't do it once, they didn't do it twice, they did it 3 times. So, anyway, enjoy V Rising. I hope that they redeem all of their problems, and I hope that they don't continue that trend of, hey, here's a bunch of skins that are more expensive than the base game that we already have in the game at launch, and we're giving it to all the streamers for free, by the way, so go sign up at this website and then promote it, please. That's very Stunlock.
But it's also a lot of other companies who do similar games.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
totally.
honestly,
It
if
doesn't
those
mean I
tactics
agree with it
didn't
or
work-
like that practice.
No,
If those
it is a
tactics
horrible
didn't-
marketing tactic, but it also works.
If they
Yeah,
didn't
and I
work,
hate
they
it.
wouldn't be doing them.
Just
You know,
because
you can-
it
you can
works
hate
doesn't
it.
mean I can support it.
But you're not supporting it by buying the game and enjoying the game as it is. You support it by buying the skins. If you don't like that, don't buy the skins. That's kind of the thing. Like
That's not...
I'm
that
okay
works.
with microtransactions in games.
It depends how
honestly
predatory
am.
they are.
It does depend a little bit on that, but if someone can pay to get different looking things, or like as long as it doesn't provide a competitive advantage, right? So I am perfectly fine with someone dressed out to the wazoo in skins. I am perfectly fine someone playing on their own server with their own various things that they've purchased. If I'm up against competing with someone who is stronger than me, that is one thing. But if I don't have any interaction with them, I honestly do not care. And this is the thing.
If it's a free-to-play game that's been out for a while or a game that's been out for a while, fine, throw in your paid skins. If you're putting in paid skins at launch and it's part of your launch promotion, no.
Are you referring to a paid game, like pay to play with paid skins?
V Rising, right now, on the Steam page, okay?
Yeah.
If you go to their Steam page, it's $22.79 in Canadian dumb money, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the Relics pack, which is $11.49, and the Founders pack of the Eldest Bloodline, which is another $33.49, making the game $61.44 for their recommended V Rising Plus launch DLC bundle.
Yeah.
That's stupid. Launch a video game.
Do you know how
I know how this
so
industry
many
works.
games. That's we're not even talking something out of the blue with this. This is how games work. This is how Steam works.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And I
All
condemn
of
it
these
every
games-
time.
But there's like, for me personally, if you want to look cool in your vampire game that you play by yourself and it costs money, go do you.
I'm kind of midway.
They are
on
already
looking into it on
portioning
this.
content out.
Because this is an early access launch. I think everything should be in the early access launch by default, and then once your game is like done, then sell extra skins.
You mentioned Ark.
I disagree.
I said Arch Survival Evolved. You mentioned Ark Survival Evolved. You remember how that game got completely canned by its community for having DLC during its early access period? This has day one DLC during its early access period.
No, this is day one. Okay.
It's day one DLC. What else is it?
Okay, we gotta point out a difference between skins and content.
Oh my
Because
god. It's
Ark
one of these
did
packs comes with
content.
craftable items that you craft in game. That's content. Skins is content.
No, they're
Palette swaps is
they're
content.
Skins. They're skins, right? They have no mechanical impact on the game. Sure, they require crafting.
It's
at
a
the end of the
crafting you
day-
craft for. The crafting is the content. Whatever. I can't curse on this show. I give up. We're at a stalemate. You
this
win.
conversation
Fine.
needs to
Move
end.
on. Next game. So, Belannaer, you played Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate Demon Hunters, yeah?
Yes, I did. I'm actually surprised by that game so much. It's an actually good Warhammer 40 game. It's like, what? These don't exist. It's that unicorn of a Warhammer game.
It's like 1 in 6 or 1 in 12.
Yeah,
or something.
they
It's a
tend
good
to be
game. The
really
rest are
bad.
all-
Like really bad
shovelware.
most of them, and very mediocre the rest of them. There's been the good ones as well, but this one is definitely much more on the good side. Like this, well, it actually depending if you like XCOM or not. So this is basically XCOM with like literally this is XCOM with a Warhammer skin, which two of my favorite things. Well, among my favorite things. Like I really love XCOM games. I'm been a huge fan of those since childhood, and then Warhammer has always been close to my heart as well. So you take two of those and put them together, and you expect a mess because it's a Warhammer game on PC. But they actually made a really good game this time, and I was blown away how nice it is. Like it's visually what you expect from like a Warhammer, like really big explosions and oomph and dakka, and all of that is like in there. I love it. Like visually, it's so awesome.
I've watched Kiri play it and Bloody Drongo play it, I think. And every time the Grey Knights speak, I get tingles. Like,
Yeah, they've done it
is
really well.
Yeah, and then you watch them take the shots and you're like, oh my gosh, they actually, can take a lot of hits. Because that was always my major complaint about Space Marines in Dawn of War. You'd have a squad come out, they'd shoot them, and you'd lose 3 Space Marines. And you're
Yeah,
like,
they go pop, pop, pop,
they're
and
the
they all fall
Emperor's,
over.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
the Emperor's finest, damn it.
Yeah,
They're supposed to be
watching this-
indestructible death monsters.
Yeah,
yeah. In this one,
Yeah,
when you
they
have a
stand
guy
there.
who is like a Terminator or on spec for like a defensive abilities, he's not going to die. If you pop all the abilities every turn, he just doesn't die. There's no way he dies. He just laughs at the enemies. Ding, ding, ding. It didn't do any damage.
I'll be honest, I also watched a little bit of this, and it made me really excited that they're making a second Space Marine.
I am very
Yeah.
interested.
Oh
That
my
is
gosh,
one of the good other Warhammer games that's been made. Even though it was
See,
horrible,
I had the wrong
horrible
idea.
with the QuickTime events, especially the final boss in that. It's just
Yeah.
series and series of QuickTime events, and one makes me want to punch the monitor.
I had the
But the other
wrong
gameplay's
idea
really good.
about Space Marine. So I never played it. Because I thought it was like just some generic, you go in, fight a guy, move along, fight a guy. Like, sort of,
mean,
you
it
spend
kinda
more time
is.
fighting one guy. No, because you fight hordes.
Well, I mean,
And
yeah,
that's what I was
it's an arena. It's like you walk into a room, an arena, and you fight a bunch of green guys, and then you move on to the
Yeah,
next room and
I
you fight a
thought
bunch
it
of
was-
green guys.
No, I thought it was more like, imagine Double Dragon. You go along and you've got to focus on the individual fight, then you move along. Whereas I was like, hoping it was more like Dynasty Warriors where, it's like, we got you surrounded. Good, I'm in a target-rich environment. And I said, I hope there's more horde fighting mechanics. And my mate was like, you've not played the first one? He's like, go play it. And I started playing it and I'm like, oh my God, as you're fighting waves of orcs and just blowing them all away. And I'm like, how did it take me so long to play? And yeah, I can't wait for Space Marine 2 as well. Because again, I think that was the 13 games ago. If they get a good one every 12 games, 11 games ago, yeah.
If you just
I
like
think it's the last good
breathe on orcs in that game, they just explode into red mist. It's wonderful. Anyway, sorry. 40k Chaos Gate Demon Hunters. Please continue.
This actually has kind of the same thing with the whole like you shoot something and then it literally explodes into body parts. Like there's this cultists running around, and you take your storm bolter at them, and they literally will lose like limbs and heads and just get chopped in half by their shots. And it's just visually pretty gruesome in some parts, but it's what you expect when there's a best of the best Emperor's Space Marines rolling in a Terminator armor and punching you in the face.
That was the funniest thing, because I was watching Kiri play it, and a couple of people in chat were like, "Oh yeah, Grey Knights are like really good against Chaos," and I'm like, "No, they were genetically designed Space Marines specifically for Chaos. Not one of them has fallen to Chaos in the past 10,000 years. Don't you understand?"
It's like, okay, I want to dump all the lore.
You got to resist massive lore dumps, and like that was the most fun thing about watching her paint the miniature. Was like, okay, I am half really enjoying the painting, but I'm also half trying to avoid lore dumping and arguing with people in chat about Grey Knight lore.
They've actually done some people complain. I saw reviews that some of the lore in the game is a little not correct, but mostly it's very well done. Like the story works, and the voice acting and all the dialogue is not as cringe and is in a lot of other Warhammer games.
Are there any orcs in it?
No, it seems to be just the Grey Knights, and then you're fighting like a Nurgle cultist, at least so far.
Right, because I've seen that, and I wasn't sure if there were orcs.
No, I don't think there is in this one.
I really hope they sound British, because it's hilarious to me that in every 40k thing, doesn't matter how different everyone else sounds,
they all sound British.
Always sound British, and the funniest thing is that was what was intended.
I mean, like, Games Workshop is British themselves, so it's just a couple of British lads there.
People forget how silly 40k used to be. Warhammer Fantasy and 40k used to be. They sit there and go, silly. "Oh, orcs are
still silly.
Yeah, orcs are so cool. They can make things work just because they believe in them." I'm like, yeah, and we all think about how cool that is. But back then, it was just a bunch of guys going, "Oh yeah, these gits, they do this and that," you know.
Well, I mean, like the reason 40k at Warhammer works is because it's the fantasy of extremes, right? Everything is taken to its natural, like, absolute extreme, which is why it's also like, yo, they're all a bunch of fascists, you know that, right? But also, like, it's funny because they're so goofy about it. Like,
there's
they
a funny
mock
story
it at the
about
same time.
Because, you know, there's with 40k, you know, some people don't get the fascism side as satire.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And there is a formerly popular known Warhammer content creator that unfortunately shared the same online handle as me, and so I can never jump into Warhammer because, you know, people are, that's going to start sounding a little bit weird,
including the play stuff part.
Yeah, no.
Oh, I was gonna say what.
Yeah, no, it's a long story, and if anyone's listening and they'll be like, if they know it, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, poor Arch." If they don't, they'll be like, "What?
Did you play Mechanicus, Bell?
Yes, and this feels much better for sure.
Because that was the other good XCOM-ish.
Yeah, that was definitely decent as well.
40k game.
They did the XCOM part in this. Like if you ignore the Warhammer part of the thing, which is really well done and what you expect and what you want from a Warhammer, if you look at the game mechanics itself, it is like the Firaxis XCOM, so the first one. It's very, very similar to that one, and has the same problems also. Why if you don't throw things? So it's the same problems as the first Firaxis XCOM. Like there's the whole pod mechanic for the aliens or the cultists in this. So like the unit of enemies exists on the map, and then when you find them, when you see them, they get a turn to move immediately, which was a huge problem in XCOM because when you move a couple of your units and then you pop a squad and then it's basically immediately their turn afterwards, so because you've already used your turn. And you got maybe sometimes got like super out of position and just have these aliens flanking you and you can't do anything. This one has the same pod popping mechanic, which is not great. But they instead they actually refund your action points for a whole squad when you see the alien, like the enemies first time, which kind of fixes it because you can then immediately move your units and whatnot. But it still has the same problem that you have four Grey Knights in this. So you move one of them, and your 3 guys are in the back. And the one that goes forward notices enemies, so he's there somewhere alone. But even if you get the action points refunded, your 3 guys are still way behind from the first one, who is basically engaging the enemies alone, and they have to then run to catch up. And it's a really bad mechanic. In my opinion, that they took from the original XCOM, which was then made much better in the XCOM 2, which they should have copied instead. And there's some other UI issues and same things that were in XCOM, and they copied it maybe a little too hard on that gameplay side.
Yeah. Well, kind of makes you wonder how long this has been in development too.
Yeah, it was also a studio that I've never even heard of before. I didn't actually even remember which one it was anymore. But
well, it's
I
published
was surprised.
by Frontier, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it is, and it's made by Complex Games, which is a appropriate name for this type of games. Which actually is their only game on Steam.
Maybe a new studio.
Could be,
but. I mean, we need new studios because everybody's getting bought, so...
yeah. But, I mean, they did if this is their first game that they published on Steam, I mean, it seems to be, they did a really, really good job, even though they have established lore from the Warhammer and established gameplay from XCOM, but they did a really good job at combining that and making it a decent game.
Yeah, that's good. It's nice to... I remember a couple of years ago going, man, when are they going to just make Warhammer XCOM? Because that just makes too much sense. And now, there's Mechanicus, and also Battle Sector, which released last year, which people seem to like, which isn't quite XCOM. It's more of a
I hope they keep making this as well. Just take this company, the Complex Games, and just let them make more of these XCOM Warhammer games. Just pick a new race or a different Space Marine faction and just throw them against each other. There's an endless swamp of games you could pull out of this when you have already a good existing base for the gameplay, and then just throw new things at it.
Give us a Warhammer Fantasy XCOM.
I don't know. Fantasy's always been more of bigger units to me.
Yeah,
yes.
See, fantasy needs to be like Battle Brothers or something.
Yeah, I think Total War style game, but better, is actually the better. There's was old Warhammer games called Shadow of the Horned Rat, I think was the one, and then there was something with vampires, and those were actually really, really good. But they were pretty similar to Total War games, but they ignored the whole kingdom management part and everything, and you just had a story campaign where you went from place to place, and then you did just the battles that are in Total War style. And those games were really, really, really good back in the day. And they also included some RPG mechanics in that as well. But I think that works much better for fantasy than a single unit based a combat system for XCOM. Although they have now, this has been already many years ago. So you have originally the Warhammer Fantasy and you had Warhammer 40k, but Fantasy actually doesn't exist anymore. It's called Age of Sigmar now. They had this storyline where the story basically went to this an end of times kind of scenario, and it literally results into the whole world exploding. So the fantasy world doesn't exist in the current lore, basically. And there's this...
So just to interject, again, I'm fighting the feeling. The desire to lore dump.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it simple as well.
I'm just looking at the recording time on this podcast going, we're at an hour and 40 minutes. And like, we haven't talked about news yet. So
It's fine.
maybe don't lore dump.
Yeah.
But-
Well, it was for short. Basically, they blew up the whole existing world, and now they have a kind of these like a pocket dimension kind of things where they have like different teams for different like planes of existence.
In the real world perspective, it's basically they went, hey, we should make fantasy a little bit more like 40k because 40k
Yes.
is much more popular.
it's selling
And
so much
that's
better.
basically how they did it.
Yeah, like for models, the basic Space Marine kit sells almost as much as the rest of the line. Like they are very, very popular, and they try to achieve that with the Age of Sigmar, and it's more like not a massive like units, but it's like a more single unit, like a single character based. Not as much as like 40k. I know. Also, they have the combat patrol now, which is even more. That's too much lore dump and everything. to go. We can do a whole podcast about Warhammer at some point. But yeah, Chaos Gate is great. Go play it.
Go play Chaos Gate. It's good.
Yes.
$45 or your regional equivalent. Arch, do you want to talk about Dorf Romantic or should I talk about Citizen Sleeper?
Oh, I'd love to talk about Dorf Romantic.
It's gonna
Well,
be
then
like
go be
4 hours.
romantic with your
Beautiful
town.
game. It's so beautiful and so peaceful, and I find myself wistfully sighing while playing, wishing I could live there.
With those awful trains that go nowhere and lakes that cut off towns? I
I
don't
mean,
know,
that's
man.
just
Have you
Germany.
Have you
Present day Germany?
Yeah, have you not, like, I live in New Zealand. Train lines don't go very far either.
Yeah.
It's such a peaceful game. Like I keep saying this when I play it on stream. I love so much of it. From the calming sounds, from the beautiful visuals and palette choices, to even when you run out of tiles and it's like session complete. It's not game over, it's not you lose, it's just, all right, you're done. And it feels so good to play, and I absolutely love it. And you know, I can't put hours into it. I'm not like one of those streamers that can play. Like, this is why I don't really play roguelikes. I will play one session of Dorf Romantic, and I'll go like half an hour, 45 minutes, and then I'll be like, all right, I can't put down and jump into another one. But for that 45 minutes to an hour, it's some of the most peaceful time that I have. And my biggest regret is not playing it sooner. It's been in my Steam library for a long time. I just didn't play it, and I really regret that. It's such a beautiful game.
And now you have hard
I
mode
don't
and
know
quick
if-
play as well. So
Yeah, no, I'm playing classic because I still haven't unlocked all the challenges. But we did go for the place all the tiles without rotating any, and I think we got all but one of those challenges complete. Like, we were absolutely smashing it. And then there's the one place, like, all these tiles consecutively that aren't mismatched, and that went amazing as well. Like, it made me feel like I was good at the game, and I'm not normally good at games.
I really like
was
the quick
absolutely
play
great.
for while I'm editing stuff because it's about the same amount of time as it takes to render and upload a YouTube video. So
Wow, that's okay.
that's my Dorf Romantic time. I completely agree with everything you've said though.
Yeah, very much.
Fantastic game.
I've streamed it several times, and it's been always super fun and chill.
Except I play like 8 games in a row when I play it.
Yeah, I'll do like a whole stream of just rotating tiles.
Just like
and talking
9
to
hours
people.
of like hexes. Let's go.
Yeah, well, it's that kind of like super peaceful Zen kind of thing. It's really, really great. Just relax and slap some tiles on the table.
I love how
Kinda
we're
like
all
Tiles
sitting here
Days.
going on about how zen and relaxing this is, and the last time Kiri was on here was just like, that game's so stressful. And, like, rage-inducing. Like, both FG and Kiri both find this game stressful and rage-inducing. We're like, it's so chill.
But it's that trying to get to
Yeah.
perfection versus just having fun, slapping some tiles and making beautiful landscape.
That That's it. I've learned to accept holes in the landscape. I've learned to just accept that we can't continue something. And to me, to my head, that is literally calamine lotion for the itching that is my brain, you know? And this is something that I talk about on stream a lot more, because I used to not share this for some reason, but you know, I have ADHD to a very, very extreme degree, you know? The 2 hours I have to sit here on the podcast, I am physically in pain by the end of it. So for something like this, to accept, to move on, to accept things as incomplete and move on, it's just so calming and so smooth. I'm not sitting there trying to get all these things. And I'm also, like, when I play other games, you know, I get decision paralysis. You know, that's one thing that I suffer from a lot. If I'm playing a game where your choices matter, I'm there with the wiki on the other side looking up what every choice means and trying to work it out, because my brain's like, I can't just make this choice willy-nilly. What if I choose the wrong one? Yet Dorfromantic kind of just, I'm okay with putting down a tile that's not perfect, you know, and moving on. I'm okay with leaving something unfinished because, quite frankly, I can't fit that in. It's something that is really opposite to how I normally approach games. And I think that's what I really love about it. For some reason, it is just so different to how I approach games, and it feels so much freeing from that.
I can very much understand you. Like, I've definitely been
very
similar in the past. I've been like that perfectionist that I need to have this perfect solution. I need to make the choices exactly how I want them. But I feel it's like the older I get, the less I care, and I just go with the flow and see what happens with the choices and everything. It's like, there's something fun at the end of this road. It doesn't matter which road I take. And I found that especially when I was playing Detroit Become Human, because there's a lot of timed decisions and things that actually really affect the story, like main characters dying kind of decisions. And I missed some of the choices there, and I was like, should I redo this? Nah, we'll just go with the flow and see what happens. And I've been starting to do that more and more and more the older I get. And it leads into a lot of fun stuff, especially on the stream. Like I did same with the Pathfinder playthrough we did, and I'm a horrible monster, apparently, when I play games like that. But sometimes you just have to see where it goes.
So, on the topic of wonderful stories, I'm going to hijack this podcast and talk about Citizen Sleeper for a third week in a row. How's that sound? Okay, so Citizen Sleeper, which I've talked about on this podcast 2 previous times, is a science fiction cyberpunk story, which is the gamification of living in a post-capitalist society as a disabled person who can't afford their meds. That's the simple version. But the long version is I've really, really, really wanted a game based on The Expanse ever since I started watching The Expanse. And now that it's done and there's a game being announced for The Expanse, for me, this is probably better than The Expanse video game will be. This was So I've seen credits. I've gotten one of the endings. And I've looked at the achievements. I'm pretty sure how you get most of the other endings. Like, I know what routes I would have to take, and some of them you'd have to prepare for pretty early on in the game. But I'm happy with my ending, and I probably won't replay the game for a while, but I would like to see those other endings eventually. I won't say what ending I get or how the game ends, and I won't say any major plot point spoilers. But all I really have to say about this game is it is a game that made me forget that I was reading because the writing is so good. And it's very, very rare that a book or a game will do that to me. Do either of you know nothing about this game? Do I need to talk about mechanics, or should I just gush? Arch?
I've not even checked out Citizen Sleep.
Okay. Well, the basic kind of mechanical structure of the game is it's in 2 parts. It's dialogue, which is akin to a Disco Elysium or a Norco. Stretches of dialogue, very, 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 very well written. combined with dialogue choices. And then there's a day mechanic, so it kind of looks like you're playing something like an XCOM with like different structures on the map, but it's nothing like that. Every day you wake up and you're given a set of dice. The dice are rolled when you wake up, and there's an ability that lets you re-roll them later on if you want to go that route. But you get your dice, and a term that chat, and actually the game references this at one point, is those are your spoons. Those are the spoons you have to go do tasks for the day. And you take your dice and you go out and into the station, and you can talk to characters. You can do jobs to earn money, which is chits, which is the game references it as literally like isolated cryptocurrency. There is food vendors you can talk to. There are gangs you can interact with. There are corporation fragments you can interact with. There's the game has an equivalent of Hackerman. There's cool nightclubs you can hang out in. You can go get a job working the docks. It's very much a science fiction story about you playing a nameless, genderless character who is inside of a copied mind inside of a synthetic body. And the previous character that person was is whatever you want to imagine them as. And they exist in this world after running away from SNARP, which is the corporation that built them, because the original human that was that person that you play as is asleep in a facility somewhere on a planet far, far away. And that person signed a contract stating that SNARP, this corporation, can clone their mind, put it into a synthetic body, and then that synthetic body can work out its life. When that synthetic body dies or is decommissioned, then the real person would wake back up and go on with their life. But the problem is, the synthetic mind in this body is sentient and being forced to work 24/7, round the clock, very little breaks, poor conditions, cramped up with a bunch of other half husks of humans. And then upon this, you realize that between that and your planned obsolescence for your body, between your meds that you require to keep your body from rejecting your mind and booting you out and killing you, as well as trackers so they know exactly where you are at all times, because you don't own your body, it's property of the corporations. You will die. That copy of you will die when the time comes for the sleeper to wake back up. So your character runs away, gets onto a freighter, goes through the void to the station called the Eye that you end up living on, and you play the game on. And it is just this wonderful, like I say wonderful because it is beautiful and uplifting and hilarious, but also dark, damning, and kind of too real in places. Combination of just deconstructing problems with society combined with borderline utopian possibilities of like where society could go. It is I was crying so hard by the end of like the end sequence that I got that I couldn't read. It's beautiful, and I think more people should play this game. I mean, it's got overwhelmingly positive reviews, and it seems to have done quite well so far. It's on Game Pass. It's on Steam. Even if you don't like reading, and I think some people will look at this game and be like, that's a lot of reading. I don't like reading. Please play it. That's all I have. That is my plea for the Citizen Sleeper. Please play it.
So, yeah, I have a problem with that. It doesn't sound like one that I could really play on stream. And I've already bought so many Steam games.
Don't buy it then. That's on you, man. I streamed the whole thing and chat loved it. But not every game needs to be streamed.
Yeah.
You got me tempted though. You know, like that's the thing. It's like I'm tempted and I'm like, I really would love something like that. You know, something to do just a whole bunch of.
As a streamer doing a streamer thing for a second here, the loop for streaming a game like this, you read 3 pieces of dialogue, you ask chat which dialogue option they want you to take. One or two people type in the option. You take the one that's more popular. You read the block of chat. You ask chat which option you want you to they want you to take. And these options come up every 30 seconds to a minute. Like, they're pretty frequent. And then the actual above ground dice game is very much like a meter management game with high stakes, right? And that is very easy to interact with chat and stream. So yes, it's dialogue heavy. The dialogue chunks are like 15 minutes tops. I think like the longest stretch of dialogue with no options was about 10 minutes. And those aren't super frequent. They're normally options every couple, like there will be a small paragraph, 2 options. Small paragraph, 3 options. Small paragraph, 4 options. Small paragraph, 2 options. And so it wasn't that hard of a game to stream. Like, obviously it was, harder than streaming something like Stardew Valley, but
yeah.
It's not unstreamable
or
anything. It's way easier to stream than Norco, which is another game I played recently like this.
Was this originally going to be Project Sidereal or Sidereal?
I have no idea. I mean, the Sidereal Horizon is a thing in the game, if that so possibly.
Because I found it under Project Sidereal, and yeah, it looks to be.
Because it's the developer's second game. They made a game called In Other Waters before that.
Yeah.
It's possible.
No, it appears to be. It's the same publisher, same thing, and all I can find is a whole bunch of really early stuff. On that, I'll check it out. It sounds like something I'd love to experience.
Took me about 10 hours ish, 14, because I'm slow, but and I
You
don't.
could also do it in a small chunks, like play one game for a start of the stream and then do a couple hours of that at the end.
Yeah, I kind of did that. The last day where I finished it, I played for about 6 hours, but like the first day I did 3, the second day I did 2, the third day I did 2, the fourth day I did 4, the fifth day I finished it. So it's not something you have to do in all in one chunk, but that's my plea for Citizen Sleeper. And I think we should go into news because we're at basically our end time and we've only talked about games. So I'm gonna take us to a quick break right here, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about the news.
Hi, this is Tidikiri. I'm a full-time content creator and Twitch streamer focusing on indie and strategy games. I'm advocating accessibility in video games, especially when it comes to simulation sickness. I love chatting with my wholesome community, achievement hunting, and winter. Look for Tidikiri on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Patreon. And now, back to the podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this very long episode of the Halcyon Frequency Podcast. I'm still blind, and I'm still here with Belannaer and Archplaysstuff, and we're here to talk about your week's news. So, Arch, do you want to take this first one?
Yeah, the first one is quite a bit of positive news and a bit of big one. The Ukrainian studio Frogwares has received what's being called a mega grant from Epic Games in order to support the developers relocating.
I feel like that's like just an Epic branded, here's big lump of money.
Yeah. Well, I like it that it's they probably wanted to differentiate between hey, this is just the money we're giving them. We are putting money that we are not expecting to recoup through the release of a game. That's sort of it there, and I think that's absolutely great. And I hope that it starts a lot of people, a lot of developer companies thinking about a lot of publishers thinking about people over there and such, because like Epic it's the #1 donator towards Ukraine, edging out some like a fair few governments. So this is another sign of Epic really putting a lot of care in, and you're kind of sitting there going, wow, they're going all out on this. That's
yeah, they are the largest great non-governmental entity worth of donations.
Yeah.
Purely because of Fortnite, but also all their other work.
Fortnite is a force for good in this world.
Yeah. But for those of you unfamiliar with Frogwares is a studio that has been around for quite some time. You may have actually seen their games and not realized it's them. They're very well known for their Sherlock Holmes games that are not based on the TV series, not based on the movies, just kind of based on the book license. And they've been putting those out since like the early 2000s. They've also done a number of other games based on other book series. They put out a short series of Dracula games as well in the early 2000s. But they're most known for their what's it called? Sherlock Holmes games, which oddly enough are strange because like early on, if you go look back at the old ones, it's like they all have kind of bad reviews, like not even just like user reviews, but just the old ones were not well received, but they've slowly turned it up to like made it up to the 60s and then into the 70s, and the most recent ones have been quite well received. They've also recently, and like as of this year, they've put out a couple of hidden object games and a few other kind of more lower budget things. So they're kind of an odd studio, but they very much are known for the Sherlock Holmes games. One of their recent releases, which is probably why they have a positive relationship with Epic right now, is The Sinking City, which was a Epic Games exclusive, which is it was like their first game in a very long time that wasn't a Sherlock Holmes game, but it was a kind of a mystery adventure game sort of in the world of Lovecraft, which had kind of a mixed response. It didn't launch that well, but the people who liked that game really liked that game. And then shortly after that, they also released another Sherlock Holmes game called Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1, which is very, very well received. So they're an interesting studio. They're kind of all over the place, but they do weird things. You know, like there's not a lot of people making detective games. So that's kind of your history on Frogwares. And it's good to hear that they're being helped to relocate because, you know, people need to make money and video games need a building that's not going to get shot at. So...
Well, I would say almost all companies need a building that's not going to get shot at.
Yes.
Unless you're testing some sort of bulletproof building, and then you would need to shoot at it. But outside of that scenario. But
also, as part of this, Frogwares posted a tweet, which I will also link in the description of this podcast, which I'm not going to read in its entirety because it's quite a lot of... wording here, but long story short, war is still going, and they are making a new game. They're revealing something soon, so curious to see what they're working on, to be honest. That's Frogwares. The next thing is very divisive. A game that many people absolutely hate with a horrendous passion or love very dearly, is going free to play. Fall Guys is falling into freedom and going free to play.
It was interesting hearing this news because I kind of expected it to already be a free to play game.
Yeah, I was surprised that it wasn't already. That was my response too.
It's like, that wasn't already free to play? What?
It's still being updated?
That still exists. So like I think we're all being kind of mean to Fall Guys, but like Fall Guys is it's not like everybody loves to scream dead game, right? Fall Guys went from being this massive sensation, if you will, this viral sensation, to just being a very successful multiplayer game. Like they don't have 200,000 concurrent players or whatever they had at peak, but there's still 10 to 15,000 people playing that game at any given day, and whenever they drop an update, it bumps up to 30. So like that game's still very successful, and they're going free to play, which honestly seems to be annoying some of the longtime players, because I've seen some people saying they don't feel like they're going to be getting enough. It's like you're going to get a free battle pass and some legacy stuff, but like some people are not thrilled with that. That being said, for people like me who bought and almost immediately refunded Fall Guys for not liking it, maybe I can be convinced to download it and play it on an evening again. I don't know. But that's Fall Guys. Any thoughts?
I think it's good for the game, like having no barrier of entry on that, so you can just play a few fun games and maybe throw a little money on a skin is probably going to be much better for the game than having I don't know how much it costs currently, but If it's
20
like 10,
bucks.
20. Yeah, so that's too much. And it's going to make the game die eventually. But having it free to play will definitely make it last a lot longer. So even for those salty old players, you will have new players to play with instead of just not having no one to play with.
You'll have noobs to curb stomp more frequently,
exactly.
in fact.
So I definitely
game
think it's
that
good for the game.
Yeah, any game that requires a certain critical mass in order to be active. Like for a lot of online games, any form of matchmaking instantly gives it okay, so there's a period in which people will no longer be able to play this game. And it's been countered in various ways, like going free to play is usually a big step, but you've also got PUBG implemented like bots. So, like I was playing PUBG on the Australian Oceania servers, and there was about 20 to 30 human players, and the other 70 were filled with bots. And so there's a lot of various things, but yeah, I think it's good for the health of the game. It reduces that entry. The thing I have to ask though is that, with how many concurrent players it had, with how many people it had in it and going through all of that, the fact that they're not playing now sort of raises the question of, okay, but is this a short spike? Are you expecting more people to come in? Like, is the barrier of entry that high that you're going to be getting a lot of long-term players from this? And
I don't know. But we'll that's not really a question that we can answer right away. I mean, that's
Yeah.
something that we'll see in
No,
a
I'm-
year after it's been free to play for a bit.
that's it. I'm keen to see how it goes.
I mean, it could be also just a
speak-
spike, cash out, and get done with it.
Yeah, that maybe too. Maybe they're just trying to sell it.
Good luck to them.
You never know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Speaking of cashing out and getting out, farming sim. Arch, do you want to explain? Why'd you put this article in here?
Okay. So, Farming Simulator 2022 or 22 is, it's a nice, peaceful farming game that you can grow various crops, you can harvest them. It also has a farm equipment sponsored esports scene.
Which
I know
apparently
that.
is really
Deere
hardcore
has
as
an
well.
John Deere has an esports team. And this esports team competitively plays Farming Simulator. And so Red Bull they've launched their series Otherworlds. And that is where they look into games you wouldn't consider to be esports related and sort of showcase those. And this caught my eye because it's so unique and it's so just, oh my gosh, and so they're actually, their episode is going to be airing on Tuesday, May 24th, and they'll be doing an episode on it, and showcasing like just how crazy this world is. And I think they'll even be, trying to take a whack at competitively playing it with a couple of speedrunners and, pro players. So yeah, that's at, the Red Bull Gaming YouTube channel.
I met the community coordinator for the farming simulator at one of the Gamescoms, and he was talking to me about the whole esports thing, and just blew my mind, like what they do with kind of a farming simulator game in a like a competitive environment, and how like into they are into it. Like it's I don't know. It's like for a Finnish mindset, it just doesn't fit. But maybe you have to be a German for this.
Well, to be fair, I don't think the Finns have many places for farms, do you?
Yeah, we do,
forests
especially on
and
the
mountains.
coastline where I live. We also make our own tractors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Finland is a weird
Maybe
place.
you two can have a tractor-sponsored esports team in Farming Simulator then.
Yeah, Valmet, call me any day.
Speaking of things I don't want to call me any day, so y'all remember Ugly Sonic from the Sonic movie that then didn't make it into the Sonic movie?
Thank God.
Yes.
Because it was ugly.
Okay, well, so it's back. Anyway, so Sonic came out, was a well-received kids movie, right? Sonic 2 is now the most profitable video game movie ever made, period. Like
Yep.
it is the most successful video game movie of all time. Anyway, the Chip and Dale movie just released, or they released a trailer, and in that movie is a cameo with Ugly Sonic. And he's got a beer gut
I'm
now.
so excited. Yes.
So is
I'm
the
doing
Rescue
Thor
Rangers?
yes.
Yeah, the new Chip and Dale. It's literally, I don't, I'll be honest, I don't know too much about this. I threw this in at the halfway through the podcast because I saw it trending on Twitter while Arch was talking. So it's like, I don't have too many details, but
I might jump on a tangent here, and I just want to talk about how brilliant the entire Sonic thing is, right? From them not just like going back and reworking the character. That was a feedback reworking thing, right? Have either of you two watched the Sonic movie?
I really want to, but
No.
I haven't gotten around yet.
Watch it. It's actually good and funny. It is true to the series. It is, it's got the lighthearted moments. It's not a cheesy ripoff. It is actually good. I found myself laughing while watching it.
I'll be honest. The only reason I haven't watched the Sonic movie is because it hasn't shown up on a streaming platform that I pay for when I'm the right level of high.
Oh, it's on Netflix in
Not
New
in
Zealand.
Canada.
So that's
not in here
that's
as
how
well.
I ended up seeing it.
At least I haven't seen it yet.
But the other thing I want to point out is Sonic as a brand on social media
It's amazing.
didn't exist until some guy just started doing are we allowed to say posts?
Sure.
It's a technical
Yeah,
term.
he started doing
It's a
some
technical
Sonic posts and ended up getting hired. And so since then, the Sonic channel has become this meme brand, this powerful personality, and it doesn't take itself seriously. It doesn't take anything seriously. You look at it and you're like, everything I knew about brand strategy has just flown out the window, and I'm watching this Sonic page get all of these tweets and follows and all of these engagements, and you're just like, what on earth? So I love Sonic
Look at
as
the
a brand.
podcast room in this Discord. I know this doesn't play very well on an audio medium, but look at the
No,
podcast.
those
room
are
in this
amazing
Discord right
pictures.
now. I will attach these screenshots.
it's
This
also
is
really
literally a
cool.
scene from a Chip and Dale movie.
My favorite thing is that it literally has a sign that says "Meet Ugly Sonic Live."
Yeah, the one and only
It's not
Ugly
just-
Sonic.
Yeah,
Ugly
it's
Sonic.
not like, oh, meet Sonic, and they've just snuck the old version in. They've literally named him Ugly Sonic. I
and
love
he's
it.
just like standing there, and he looks kind of washed up, and he's just wearing like a jacket, and he's got a beer gut, and he's got sunglasses on his head. He just looks
Is
kind
the
of
picture
lost.
on the left? Does it look like shots from him from various other games? Like the one on the left looks like a Halo thing where his face is edited. in.
Yeah, there's
It
multiple
definitely
video
does
game
look like
parodies in the
something.
background and art pieces.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
it's
that's
absolutely
something
Very
great. You
funny.
know,
This
you
is
know the
a-
Sonic
this is-
team.
this scene is taking place at a fake like Comic-Con, but you have the
Yeah.
ugly
Yeah.
Sonic from those early trailers that didn't make it.
I
in the movie.
kind of want some of those paintings on my wall.
Like I love the idea of this because you just look at this and you're like, I wonder who went to who with the idea, because you could see Chip and Dale going, oh, hey, we're doing this. But then you could also see Ugly Sonic going, you guys are doing a Comic-Con thing. We have this idea for you and we'll give you all these assets.
So the one thing that does make me kind of sad about this character though is a special effects studio did close because of the redesign. So a bunch of people did lose their job. So there's like conspiracy theories flying around that they're like, oh, they intentionally released a Ugly Sonic initially. No. And they did bankrupt a independent 3D design studio. So
Yeah. So,
But they do
with
a
that,
pretty bad job, though.
yeah, they did
No,
a very
that-
bad job. But they did a good job on the redesign, which they
Yes.
also did. But they
Okay, so
closed
same
down before the
people who
movie
made the
came out.
redesign as well.
Well, that was the problem, though. Like the redesign work was not was literally what the actual character was or what it is. So
How
they
should
took
that
a
look,
risk, and that risk didn't pay off, and they ended up going with what he looked like originally, and that went so well. So part of it is sad, but on the other hand of it, watch me get all capitalist here. When you have something like that, and when you have that much money on the table, that many contracts, there should have been someone that put their hand up beforehand and went, no, this doesn't look right. This doesn't look good.
Yeah, before we
This
saw
is-
it,
you know,
someone should have.
This is
already
giving
been-
me nightmares. Yeah. Somebody should have called it out before it went to the trailer. And the failure to do that is, what ends up happening.
It's really cool to have this whole
But
thing on the Chip and Dale movie, though, kind of immortalizing the whole saga and the meme.
Yeah, I think it's good in that, and I love the way Chip and Dale, you got the 3D surgery. I'm really looking forward to that movie too.
All right. I think that this has been a very long episode of the Halcyon Frequency Podcast, and I just want to say thank you to Arch and Belannaer for taking the time to talk, and Belannaer for waking up early along with me, and thanks,
it wasn't
Arch,
that
for
early.
recording with
Not
us today.
really.
But
Staying up late, it's almost 5 a.m. I just want to point that out.
it's nice. It's midday for you, dude. I know what your sleep schedule is.
Yeah, that's like my sleeping time as well. So yeah, it's fine.
It's
But,
past my bedtime, all right?
All right, everybody. Anyway, Arch, speaking of it's past your bedtime, where can people find you on the internet and watch you play terrible games, maybe like V Rising, or talk about terrible games like V Rising?
Yeah, well, you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Archplaysstuff. I'm there 3 days a week. You can also find me on Twitter at twitter.com/Archplaysstuff, and I am there every time I remember I should send out a tweet.
And Belannaer?
You can find me on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/Belannaer, and all my other stuff through there pretty much. And I will be playing V Rising as well, probably tomorrow actually. Well, when
Hope
this
you
podcast
enjoy it.
started, that's like a couple days ago. Probably more next week as well, because it does look like my type of game, much more.
And this has been the Halcyon Frequency Podcast. You can find more episodes of this podcast at halcyonfrequency.com or a podcast platform of your choice. You can also find links to all of our channels and everything else on halcyonfrequency.com, as well as a little pitch on who we are and what we do as a stream team. We've got some things to announce coming up, so if you're not already, I would recommend jumping into the Halcyon Frequency Discord, which can also be found on the website or in the description of this podcast, because, for one thing, we host servers for multiple video games, including bad games like V Rising, and
esports contenders like
and
Farming
esports
Sim
contenders like
2022.
Farming Simulator, of course. No, we don't have a team. Maybe we should form an esports team for Farming Simulator. That sounds like too much work. But if this podcast doesn't show up on a podcast platform that you like to use, let me know. Just DM me or reach out, and I will make it appear there. And if you don't know where to find me, you can find me over at twitch.tv/BLINDIRL Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays for way too many hours. And the rest of the time, youtube.com BLINDIRL or just blind. Just type in Dwarf Fortress Steam and you'll find me eventually. And you can follow me on Twitter because I actually tweet again at BlindIRL. So thank you very much for listening
on
to this
you.
episode of the podcast. And now's where we say goodbye.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night.
Goodbye.
Bye.